Hi, I'm Mike from Essex, UK. Welcome to my YouTube film. We're going to talk about hydroponic strawberries today, so hopefully you'll get some good information. Okay, here we go. Okay, yeah, so I've had a bit of an obsession with hydroponic strawberries for a while now. My wife and I used to live in North London, and although it was fairly easy to grow things there in the garden, pests were always a problem. When we moved out to Essex though, I mean, we're quite lucky, we've got quite a large garden. We thought it would be even easier, but in actual fact it's harder. We get a lot of problems with weeds, slugs and all sorts of other pests. So whenever we've tried to grow strawberries or raspberries, which you know are our favourite fruits, the slugs get them, the squirrels get them, the birds get them. So you know, we really didn't have much of a chance of, you know, enjoying our own fruits. So I had the idea of getting the strawberries up off the ground, and I thought about, you know, like a trough with soil, and then I looked into it a bit more, and then I sort of started reading about hydroponics, and I thought that sounds quite interesting, so did a bit of research. And you know, there's all sorts of videos on YouTube already, and basically I had a look, and I kind of took the ideas that I thought would suit me best, and then you know it kind of became a bit of an obsession. So we built the polytunnel, which took a while to do, you know, getting the bits in and, you know, getting it in the ground and putting it together. And it was a bit of a job. I had to get some people's help. And then when it came to building the actual hydroponic system, that required a lot of research. You know, all of the parts, you know, the PVC pipes, all of the plumbing parts, a lot of hydroponic parts, So yeah, we spent quite a lot of time looking into that, and over a period of a few weeks, I managed to get all of the parts together, got them delivered, and then it became time to actually build the system. So we went for the NFT system, which is basically a PVC pipe which has nutrients running along the bottom of the pipe. Now I have to admit, this is the third year that we've done this. So the first couple of years we had some success, but it wasn't perfect. There are a lot of variables which I had to contend with, different techniques, flow rates, type of nutrients, temperatures, all sorts of things. So so in this, our third year, I think we've kind of got it cracked, learning from our past mistakes. So yeah, as you can see, this year's crop has been quite good. We've actually been harvesting for about 2 or 3 weeks now, and we do have to take strawberries every day because they do get ripe very quickly, within hours. And any strawberries that are left up there for too long, I mean, they get very ripe. I mean, personally, I prefer them not quite so ripe. So I try to get them before they go too dark reds. Right, so what mistakes did I make in the first 2 years? I'd say 2 of the biggest issues were temperature of the nutrient solution, and also ambient air temperature. And see, the thing is with these NFT systems, they do act like a heat exchanger. So the nutrient solution in the tank will be at a certain temperature, but when the ambient air temperature gets quite warm, as it passes through the system, it actually picks up heat, and then you will get a runaway effect. So I mean, I found that the difference between the nutrient solution temperature going in and coming out is around 1.5 to 2 degrees. Now that doesn't sound like a lot, but if you let that continue without extra cooling, then that temperature will rise and rise and rise, and before you know it, it will be too hot. And of course, as I found in the first couple of years, a high nutrient solution temperature contributes to root rot, and that's something that we suffered a lot from in the first 2 years. Now, the other thing that we did wrong, and I think we've corrected this year, is the levels of nutrient solution in the pipe. Now, the first couple of years I was kind of obsessed with making sure the roots of the plant were well submerged in the solution. So what I did, I adjusted the outlet pipes from each PVC pipe, so that the opening was high up in the pipe, which meant that the solution had to get to quite a high level before it drains out into the next pipe. What I found was that was actually contributing to root rot, or what I've kind of realized now, because I mean it seems like the roots themselves, apart from needing nutrients, water, they also need oxygen. which they do get in the earth to some extent. Whereas what I was doing before was I was completely submerging the roots. They were getting plenty of nutrients and water, but no oxygen. And a slight rise in temperature, I think a combination of that and the fact that there's, you know, the roots weren't able to get any air, you know, contributed to root rot. And, you know, once you get root rot in one plant, it will spread. And, you know, before you know it, you've got to replace all of the plants. So, yeah, it's a bit of a nightmare. So this year, I thought I would try just having the minimum amount of solution at the bottom of the pipe. So basically the adjustments that I'd mentioned for the drain pipes, I'd got them down to a minimum. So basically the nutrient would just flow in right at the bottom of the pipe and then straight out. So only the very tips of the roots would be in the solution to start with. Now obviously we started off with bare root strawberries, and there should be a photo of when we first put them in earlier this year. So yeah, very small plants, and so that I was a little bit wary because literally just a very tiny amount of the roots was in the solution, but as you can see, it seemed to work. The other thing that we did differently was the type of nutrients and the concentrations. I think maybe I was using too higher concentration in the first 2 years. So this year, and I'll show you which nutrients we used. I used maybe between 1/2 and 2/3 of what the manufacturers recommend, you know, in terms of concentration. So it was always on the weaker side, because I think possibly, I mean, you see, thing is, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a botanist, and I know there are issues with too much nutrients, you know, overfeeding, and I think maybe that was an issue previously, but I don't know. So so it's all really trial and error. I mean, you know what I'm doing, I mean, I'm saying now, I'm no expert, but you know, if you like the results that I've had this year, then by all means, you know, have a go, do what I did, and hopefully you'll get the success that I've had this year. Right, now the parts that I've mentioned, you know, the PVC pipe. Yeah, I like to do things on the cheap whenever possible. The PVC pipe wasn't cheap, but it has to be PVC and it has to be white, you know, for, you know, temperature reasons, because black pipe would just, you know, get so hot very quickly. So that's out of the question. Some of the parts I've used to connect to the PVC are plumbing parts, which are solvent weld. So basically, you know, they're glued in place. Well, not glued, solvent weld. It's like the PVC actually melts, so it is like a weld. So yeah, I'll show you here what these parts look like. The nutrient solution, yeah, you can get a proper tank from hydroponics suppliers, but what I found is you get just as good a result using a cold water tank designed for your loft. So, you know, it's quite a, I can't remember how many litres it holds, it's quite a big tank, but the point is, you know, it's perfect for the job, and it wasn't too expensive, and probably more than big enough for what I need. The other thing you need is pumps. Obviously you need a pump to pump the nutrient solution into the system. Again, you know, you can go on Amazon and get pumps that were designed for ponds or water features. There's loads of them out there. Just get, you know, quite a powerful one that will give you the height, because obviously it's got to get up and then through the system. So yeah, the specs for these pumps normally indicate what sort of height they will pump up to. Now the other thing to help with the cooling is I've wrapped the tank with a reflective material. Unfortunately the tank is a black plastic, so that can't be exposed to the sun in the summer. That would just boil. So what I've used is the reflective material that some builders use when they fit radiators indoors. So normally it's at the back of the radiator. It looks like a kind of bubble wrap, but it's silver. So yeah, I got that from Screwfix, I think, or B&Q, something like that. It's cheap as chips. You get it in a roll, so you just wrap your tank up with that, so that helps it keep cool. Now the other really important thing is, although I've done that with the tank, and I did talk about the heating of the nutrient solution, there are three other things actually that we've had to do to keep that cool. One is coolers, actual nutrient solution coolers. Now I did buy one last year, or was it the year before, but I ended up having to buy another. So I've got two of them running all of the time, and of course for each cooler I have to get a pump. Again, you know, as I said before, you know, ponds pump or water feature pump. So so that's that. I use a normal a normal fan. So when it gets warm, I put the fan on just to get the air circulating around the plants, try and keep the temperature down, because in the summer in here it gets really hot. I mean, it's just ridiculously hot. So when it does get hot, too hot for the cooler and the fan, I've actually got an air conditioning unit as well, portable air conditioning. So on the hottest of days I'll run that during the day, and I think those three things really help, because I think the temperature is the killer more than anything else. So you really need to sort of keep on top of that, and of course, like I said, the main problem is root rot, and once you get root rot in one plant it will spread, because it is like a disease. Now the other thing that's really important is oxygen in the water, oxygen in your nutrient solution. So the other thing I've got running 24/7 is an air pump. In my tank I've got 4 air stones, and I use a linear pump. I'll try and remember where I got it from, and you know, all these bits and bobs, you know, if I can remember and find out where I got them all from, I'll put them in the link below, so hopefully you'll be able to get hold of them too. So yeah, so it's a linear air pump that's running the whole time, and also to help with that, I have all of the drain, as the solution goes through and goes back into the tank, I make sure the drain pipe is above the level, so that it actually drops in, so that's an extra bit of aeration there. And the same with the solution going through the coolers. because obviously, you know, that I use a pump to get them into the cooler and then back out, and again as they come out back into the tank, I make sure the pipe is above the level. So again, so there's lots of variation going on there, because oxygen levels need to be high, because apart from root rot, the other issue is algae, so that it helps with that. I mean, obviously the main cause of algae is sunlight, so obviously the tank has got a lid on it. I mean, it's not a perfect fit because I've got pipes going in and out, but you know, we try and keep the light out as much as possible. And the same with the net cups. Another thing that I wanted to mention that we did differently this year, we'd use a different type of net cup that's got a very wide rim, so it actually completely covers the hole in the PVC pipe. So again, that's another place where sunlight can get in and cause all sorts of problems. Again, with these net cups, I got them from Amazon. I mean, the first cups I used to use were okay, but you know, there were a few issues, but these ones were brilliant, because apart from the wide rim, they had a kind of sizable hole in the middle at the bottom, so when you first put the plants in there, you can get some roots through straight, and that's the main root of the roots through the cup, through the hole in the bottom, not through the sides, just there through the bottom in the middle. So yeah, so that helps a lot, because the old net cups, I had to kind of like tease roots through the tiny little slits at the sides, and it was really difficult. So doing it this way was a lot easier. The plants are held in with clay pebbles. Yeah, they're okay. You have to make sure that they're a decent size, because some of the smaller pebble, because I mean they call them clay pebbles, it's a bit of a mixture. There are some what you would call pebbles, and they're in amongst that is what I would call gravel, that's actually smaller than the openings of the net cup. So if you're not careful, some of these bits will go through into the nutrient solution, which in itself isn't a problem, but if one of them blocks up a pipe, then you've got a real problem, because this is something that actually happened once last year. I got up one day, came in to see what was going on, and the pump was making a really weird whirring noise, and I noticed the level was right down, and I think it was this end, the one of the pipes got blocked with a pebble. So basically the pump was constantly filling up the top pipe until it just drained out, and it just kept going all night. So you know, there's a solution everywhere, and I had to do a new mix. So you want to make sure the pebbles are bigger than the slots in the net cup, and really give them a shake before you put the plant in, just to make sure nothing drops out. Luckily this year that hasn't happened once, so it's been great. How is this supported? Okay, so one of the things that I kind of saw on YouTube were people sort of building like an A-frame, and I kind of thought, well, I'm going to have to do the same. So you know, I was going online trying to figure out how much timber I needed to buy, and then figure out a design of putting the A-frame together so that it would support, you know, the whole, because these pipes are quite long. And then I was kind of looking at the situation, so what I did, I realised that basically I can just use gravity to build a a support. So there were some bits and pieces left over from when I built the polytunnel. So basically, you know, one steel piece attached to the junction near the top, and then I just used a couple of bits of timber that I had lying around from when I rebuilt the fence in the garden. So basically the whole thing is just sitting on two hefty bits of timber, supported from the top. It's not going anywhere. All the weight is going straight into the ground. So yeah, a really simple solution, which I'm really pleased with. So yes, yeah, like I said, I always like doing things on the cheap. What else is there? Right, we've spoken about temperatures. Obviously we need to keep an eye on these. In actual fact, I've got 3 thermometers going. I've got one in the nutrient solution in the tank. I've got another thermometer, again a cheap and cheerful aquarium thermometer, at the end of the run, just before it comes out the system to go back into the tank. So that way I can see the temperature going in and coming out, hence the heat exchange issue we were talking about. And I've got another thermometer just for the ambient air temperature. Now, apart from temperatures, there's 2 other measurements that are really important, and that's pH and EC. pH, as I'm sure you all know, is a measurement of whether something is acid or alkaline. So that's really important. And also EC, that's a way of measuring the concentration. So if you just put clean fresh water in the tank, in theory the EC will read 0, but as you start adding nutrients, that EC will change to reflect the concentration of the nutrients in the solution. Now it doesn't give you the concentration of each nutrient, it's just the overall, you know, because obviously you will use more than one product in the solution, but the overall concentration is something. It's good. I mean, again, like I said, I'm not a scientist. I've got a rough idea of where it should be, but we'll get to that. Now, in the previous 2 years, I used to use these cheap and cheerful meters. You know, it's just like a pen meter. So one for pH, one for EC, and there was another. I can't remember what it was for, but yeah, I ended up getting a collection of these things. And you know, they needed calibrating, and because they were cheap, shall we say, the accuracy, I don't know. I really don't know. So this year, instead of sort of faffing around with all of these different meters, which, you know, I would have to check every day or more than once a day separately, so that was a faff. Yeah, the Bluelab Guardian measures EC, temperature, and pH. So it's a lot easier than mucking around with separate separate, you know, devices. The thing is with the Bluelab is that when you get it, it does need to be calibrated. The probe for the EC temperature, which is one probe, and the pH probe, they need to be put into a solution, calibration solution, one for pH 7, one for pH 4, if I remember rightly. But the problem is the unit, when you buy the unit, it comes with like a little sachet of these solutions. I mean, not much bigger than the soy sauce you get with your pot noodle. I mean, it's tiny. So you know, you might be able to use it once, but then after that you've got to go back to Bluelab to order more sachets. Now I can't remember how expensive or cheap it was, but excuse me, I did find a better solution. I went online and did a bit of research and found there's a company that supplies these calibration solutions for industry. So you get, you know, like a bulk, like a half-litre bottle of pH 7 and pH 4, which is going to be enough to last me for a few years. So that's again, I'll give you the details of where I got this stuff from. But yeah, it works out a lot cheaper. Just doing stuff on the cheap again, I guess. Now we need to talk about the actual nutrients and the water. Now obviously, you know, you have to use water, but shouldn't really use tap water. Well, it depends on where you live. I mean, this part of the UK, the water is quite hard, so there's a lot of, I don't know if it's calcium, limescale, whatever you want to call it. I mean, rainwater is ideal, but you know, in the summer, where's that going to come from? So what I do is I use a filtering system, which filters out all of those impurities, and I've got it running off an external tap through this filtering system and then into a water butt, which, you know, a water butt that you would normally use to collect rainwater. So I tend to run it for about a day. Yeah, I mean, a good sort of 12 hours should fill up the butt, and then I just top it up every now and then. So that's what I use. And then when it comes to the actual nutrients, which I mix in, and again, going by the mistakes that I've made in the past, the method I used to get the results this year was to use Canna products exclusively. So once the bare root strawberries are in, you know, you've got them sorted out in your net cups and clay pebbles, and you know, it's all sort of in place and nothing's falling through or whatever. I'll just flush just plain water through it, filtered water, for a couple of hours, and then I will introduce the first Canna product, which is Rhizotonic. I mean, all of the Canna products are organic. A lot of them are sort of seaweed based, so it's all natural. So the Rhizotonic, what that does, it develops or helps develop the roots, because that's the first thing you need to get going. And it's easy to check, you know, once you have it running through. And I mean, the Rhizotonic solution I would use for a couple of weeks at least. But then, you know, you can lift the net cups up, have a look at the roots, and you can see, and you know when it's working, because you'll see fresh, brilliant white roots appearing. And once that starts, then you know you're more or less sorted that it's going to work. So you do that for a couple of weeks, let those roots develop, and then at the same time you'll probably see some vegetative growth. You know, some of the first few leaves are going to start getting bigger. So yeah, so that's that. Then you know everything's working fine, and then the next thing to do is to switch. Now that switch solutions, but what you've got to remember is with the Rhizotonic, I use it throughout the whole cycle. So I started with the Rhizotonic, now I'm adding other solutions. Now the first thing that I will add is a product called Canna Aqua Vega. Now I presume they call it Vega because it's to do with vegetative growth, which is what you want. You know, if your roots are going, now you need to get the plants up and running. So the Aqua Vega is a two-part solution. So you use both parts, and again, like I've said previously, I always use a bit less than what the manufacturers recommends, either half or between half and 2/3 of the concentration. So I will use that combination of Rhizotonic with the Aqua Vega products for a number of weeks until the plants get to the point where flowers start to appear, flowers and fruits. So you're talking about a couple of months probably, at least. Once you start seeing flowers and fruits, then it's time to switch. Now we carry on with the Rhizotonic, but instead of the Aqua Vega we use Aqua Flores. Again, it's another two-part solution from Canna. So, you know, Aqua Vega, Rhizotonic, and then the Aqua Flores solution combination together, and then do that while the flowers and the fruit are still appearing. So probably you're talking about another couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, whatever. And then there's another product that they use, that they make, Canna make, and it's called Boost. It's just called Boost. So Rhizotonic, Aqua Flores, and a bit of this Boost stuff. Now the reason I can, you know, update the sort of composition of the solution quite regularly is because well, this year particularly, because the plants seem to be growing really well. I don't know if it's exclusively because of that or whether it's because of evaporation. I find the level in the tank is constantly dropping, so I'm guessing that the plants are using up a lot of water, which is good, you know. I mean, to develop, you know, fruits and vegetation requires water, so it's natural that the levels will drop. So I'm constantly having to top up, and I normally top up by, I mean, I'm normally at around about 60 litres in the tank, but when I top up I normally do it about 20 litres at a time. So each time I top up, which, you know, could be, you know, once a week at least, maybe more, I will make up the solution for a 20 litre portion. So because I'm doing that constantly, I can switch from the Aqua Vega to the Aqua Flores at a convenient time. Alright, the tank might still have some of the old Aqua Vega in there, but it's not going to do any harm. And, you know, after a few top ups it will be all Aqua Flores and hardly any Aqua Vega anyway. And as I said, you know, after a while I'll start using Boost as well. There's one more nutrient solution that we start using, and it's kind of around about the time or just before harvest, when the strawberries are ready to pick, or just before, when they're getting a bit of colour. Canna do a product called, I think they call it PK or KP. I'll show you the details in a mo. Sorry, I'm a bit unprepared for this, but yeah, it's another additive that helps improve the ripening and the flavour and whatever, you know. So they say. I mean, I just do as I'm told by the manufacturer. And like I said, this year it seems to be working really well. Yeah, regarding temperatures, there's all sorts of figures being bandied around about, you know, regarding what temperature your nutrient solution should be. I've kind of come to the conclusion that around 19 degrees centigrade I mean, you know, if the weather gets a bit cool, I mean, the strawberry plants don't mind cold weather, really. I mean, especially if they're in a polytunnel. It's just the hot weather that you need to be careful of. Yeah, around 19 degrees. I mean, you know, when the weather gets really hot, that might creep up a bit. I mean, I'm going by the thermometer that I've got in the PVC pipe, as the nutrient solution is on it, been all the way through, and it's just about to come out and go back into the tank. So yeah, so I mean, if it's 19 degrees coming out, that means it's going to be a bit colder going in. So you should be okay. I mean, in really extreme hot weather, where I've had to have the coolers are on anyway, but where I've got the fan on and the air conditioning as well, I mean, that at a push that might creep up to 21, 22, but you know, with all the cooling that I've got going on, there's not a lot more I can do. So you know, if that's not good enough, then so be it. But so far it's been okay. So that's the temperatures. Regarding a pH, again, that's another thing where you will hear lots of different figures from different people. I mean, I've kind of generalized it to be around about between 5.5 and 6.5. So anywhere around the 6 mark is fine. And I found that when you mix up these nutrients, they're not far out to start off with, but we do sometimes have to use products like this, pH up and pH down. Now the thing is, if you've not used these before, it's very easy to use too much. I mean, if you need to, say, knock the pH down by about, say, 1 in a tank full of about 60 litres of fluid, then literally it would literally be, believe it or not, about a teaspoonful of this. I mean, it's incredible, really. Such a tiny amount makes so much difference. And of course you need to kind of let it circulate with the pumps and everything, just so it settles, but you will see the difference straight away. So if you need any adjustment, there are tools, but just be really sparing, because otherwise you'll end up putting too much of this and then having to put some of the other, and you know, you'll be going round in circles. So less than you think to start off with is probably the way to go. Right, I think that's all I've got for you. Like I said, I'm no expert. All I'm doing is sort of sharing my experience, and you know, luckily this year's been really good. So hopefully you'll get some ideas, and you know, and if you want to sort of try and do what I've done, then great. I mean, I'll come back with an update, because we've got this one crop that we're working through at the moment. Now I don't know if there's going to be another crop, because you know, because we've used oh, actually, yeah, did we talk about varieties? No, maybe we didn't. Okay, yeah, I suppose I ought to talk about those. Right, so because of the sort of pandemic and lockdown and this, that and the other, getting things delivered was a bit of a pain. So when it came to getting the bare root strawberry plants delivered at home, it really was a question of getting what was available for delivery. Now I wanted to have, you know, different varieties that would crop at different times, but you know, I didn't really have the luxury of choosing, so I kind of got what was available. And this year what I ended up with was 3 varieties. One is Malling Centenary, the other one is Malling Allure, and the third one is Vibrant. Now I've used Vibrant before. It's really vigorous, and you get, I mean, it's sort of like really reliable. You get lots of really good fruit, kind of all at the same time. So once they're kind of done, but then again, you know, like I said, because we didn't do that well in the last couple of years, maybe, you know, there could have been a second crop, who knows. And the same with the other two varieties. I mean, they're all cropping now around about the same time, which is not ideal. You know, maybe next year we'll look at maybe some everbearing. I mean, I've tried everbearing before, but because the whole system didn't do that well generally because of all the mistakes we made, maybe, you know, the everbearings could have done better. So if I had some this year, who knows. But yeah, so maybe we'll get a second crop from these varieties. We don't know yet. I've noticed there are a few extra flowers turning up, so we'll wait and see. But other than that, I think that's all I've got for you. I'll get an update if anything significant happens. But in the meantime, thanks for watching, and best of luck. Cheers.